everyone. I'm back with y'all now. Denzel Mensah. If you already don't know, this is your first time watching. I'm an ENFJ, social 9 wing 1, social sexual. Yeah. And this is pretty much part 3 of a series that I did. A continuation of a series that I started a while back. But it's not necessary to watch the first 2 videos because I feel like, this is just pretty much going to be something in and of itself. But to get a holistic picture, then I recommend that you check out my previous 2 videos on my Enneagram journey. The first video was me being profiled and pretty much like figuring out what my Enneagram type was and all of that. So it's an audio and everything, and the moment where I found out that I was actually an Enneagram 9. So the second video is me pretty much explaining a lot of my experiences and thoughts, at least from that short time period of what it's like to be a 9 and everything. And now that it's been some good time since then, and I've learned a lot more. I've observed a lot more other people, observed myself. Then I was like, you know what? Yeah, let me just make a full-on video, at least from my own experience, on what it's like being an Enneagram 9. And in that case, an Enneagram social 9. It's the counter type. So if you already don't know about Enneagram, you should probably check out my video. A brief but not so brief intro to the Enneagram, because it breaks down like all of the different terminology that I'm going to be using in this video, and it kind of like introduces you not only to the types but also to what a wing is, also to what the instinctual variants are. And if you haven't seen my video on the instinctual variants, you should definitely go and check that out as well. There's a short version and then there's a longer version, for those of you who, whichever one might cater to you better. But throughout this video, I'm literally just going to be explaining my experience as an Enneagram 9, a social 9, so the counter type. And an Enneagram 9 is an Enneagram 9, whether or not you're a counter type of a type or not. So social 7 is still going to be a 7. A sexual 4 is still going to be a 4. A sexual 1 is still going to be a 1. Self-preservation. Oh, is it? Yeah, I think it's self-preservation 4. That's the counter type for 4. But anyway, all I'm saying is, regardless of whether you're a counter type or not, you still are that Enneagram type. A sexual 5 is still a 5. So you're always going to still have that inherent core motivation for which Enneagram type that you may be. So number 1 on my list for being an Enneagram 9, social 9 at that, is letting the team down. I've realized that for me, participation is a big thing. Like I view everything as if I am a node of the system. And for everything to work together, for the team to work properly, then I have to be doing my part just as everybody else has to be doing their part. If you want to relate it to basketball terms, you never want to be that guy who you see the person that you're supposed to be guarding going straight for the layup. And then everyone on your team is like, yo, whose man is that? Who's supposed to be guarding him? Because now that's on you. Your team just lost a point. Or just your team pretty much just got scored on because of you maybe slacking, or maybe even you weren't slacking, you were probably guarding somebody else, but that was still your responsibility. So for me, I think that I relate this to everyday life as a social 9. Whatever group that I find myself in, then I always try to perform well. That way I can make sure that I'm carrying the team, at least my section or my portion of the team, the best that I can. And one could say that this is very 3-like, which, by the way, 9s integrate to 3. And so 9s at their healthiest actually start to exhibit the most healthy traits of 3s. They start to, put themselves more out there. They start to actually, kind of be a little bit more ambitious and more driven and stuff like that. So that if it's looking 3-ish, then I'm happy, actually, if anything. But what I'd say is that the core motivation for the nine, and which is like different from the three, is that the nines narcotize, whereas like the threes, they're going based off of image. And so for me, I know that my intentions whenever I'm trying to perform well in a group, I realized is funny because I I pretty much it's another form of me trying to avoid conflict. So what I mean by that is that I work at a restaurant right now, and I know that whenever I may mess up on an order, then the kitchen could get upset, or somebody could be like, "Yo, like, whose table is that? That's upset or whatever." And if I know that's on me, then now that's creating some type of conflict, and I don't want that. I don't want anybody coming to me and then all of a sudden like saying things like, "Oh, like, yo, Denzel doesn't know how to do his job," whatever, whatever. So because I have realized that performing well, I don't have to be the greatest, which again is what I think would be more of a three behavior. They're more driven to like be like the best and like outshine. For me, I don't think that I don't really like kind of like shoot to be the greatest, if at that. But I guess I want to be able to make it by long enough so that where nobody has to bother me. So a lot of times when I'm put on a new team, whether it's basketball, whether it's a new job, whether it's a new dynamic, like I want to make sure that I learn the culture, that I understand what all of the needs of everybody else's are and everything, and what is expected of me. That way I can minimize as much as I can the amount of rebuke that I might receive from other people, and that I feel like that's a very nine thing to do. Nine's known as the peacemaker, and a lot of times they're known as like conflict avoidant. Whereas for me, I feel like I do avoid conflict, but I avoid unnecessary conflict. And as in like if I understand that conflict is necessary at times in order to create true harmony. But there's some things that you literally did not have to go down that road of conflict in order to create the harmony. So if there's an alternate path, even if it might be a little bit longer, I would prefer to go with that one. So if that's still conflict avoidant, then fine. But yeah, so for me, it's like I'd rather just do well at my job so that I don't be made out to look stupid, and I don't put a bad taste in other people's mouth about me, and then therefore create conflict whenever I'm trying to engage with them. Number two thing that I've realized about being a nine is that I tend to do a lot of actions for people. I tend to pretty much like I'm in service of a lot of people. But one difference that I've seen between the nines and the twos is that the inherent motivation for the twos is because they don't feel like they're loved, and so therefore they do things for other people so that other people can love them, and also they try to meet the other people's needs. That way, other people can meet their need as well, which is, can you love me in exchange for all the things that I'm doing for you? Now, this does not mean, obviously, that twos are insincere. And actually, Beatrice Chestnut says that twos do this a lot subconsciously. So a lot of twos may not even know that this is exactly why they're doing that until they actually self-assess and they're like, crap. Or until they, move to 8 and then they're like, they explode in that sense. And it's like, oh, there goes that arrow movement telling you that, okay, this is why I'm doing whatever I'm doing. For me, what I've realized is that I can be an active service for other people, especially in a group. In a group, I tend to be a huge active service. I try to do a lot of different things. But it's not so that I can get people to like me, but it's rather because I like the people. And because I already like the people in the group, then my natural proclivity or inclination is to just do whatever I think is necessary to keep this group up. And so I feel like that's one big thing that maybe like nines would resonate with, especially social nines, who are known to do things like a lot for whatever group that they're in. I think that, like, from examining my intentions and everything, yeah, it's like the moment that I no longer care for that group of people or that dynamic, then all of a sudden, like, my services for them dramatically decrease, because it's like, well, I was only doing this like because I actually liked y'all. I wasn't trying to get y'all to like me. I might not even really like me, but I was just doing it because I liked y'all. But now that I don't really prefer y'all like that, then why would I use up all this energy? I'm gonna go give it somewhere else, if I can find somewhere else. So that was something that I also thought was pretty interesting, and I thought that maybe other nines might be able to relate to. The number 3 insight that I've had about being a 9 is that my base mood is contentment. And what I mean by that is that I feel like everybody has a mood or an emotion that a majority of the time they kind of level at. And for me, that is contentment. I find that whatever situation may present to me, whatever state of mind that I might be in, whatever the case may be, period, I find that I how do I say it? I try to. It's like I subconsciously. Sorry, I'm having a hard time articulating this. It's a whole bunch of things that I had to analyze in my own psyche, and see the pattern of after Enneagram brought this, up to my awareness. But yeah, the pattern that I've realized with this is that I guess I compared 9s to 7 one time, whereas 7s, I've seen that they also are all about good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, right? Just like how, like, I'd say like 9s are, but a big difference that I've seen is that 7s are more comfortable and are even more able or more frequently see how the glass is half empty. And then they actively shift their perspective to view it as half full. So something could happen, and then they're like, dang, but you know what? It's all right. It's all good. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be a good day. I gotta stay positive. No bad energy is getting to me. I'm gonna keep this up. Blah, blah, blah. Like, that's, I know so many 7s that just kind of like have this energy. Sure, maybe it might not be like as whatever, maybe depending on whatever Myers-Briggs type they are. But I know quite a few that just have this like, ooh, I just noticed that just ticked me off a little bit, but you know what, never mind. That, I'm not gonna let that get to me. Good vibes, keep them focused, whatever. Now for the 9s, I think, at least from examining myself and speaking to a few others, the difference is that we are also about good vibes, but we don't even notice that the glass is half empty a lot of times. Our natural inclination is to already just view the glass as half full. It's, oh wow, thank you. And so it's almost like we have this like gratitude that most people may not even already have. And sometimes that could be a bad thing, because then we don't ask for more of what we need. Like, there's types such as like the 8, for example, that I think like the 8, I admire how they're able to challenge. So it's like, oh wait, like, is this all I'm getting, or is this all we're getting as a group? Like, no, like we're gonna push so that we can get a little bit more. This is what we deserve. Whereas a 9 might be like, hey, don't rock the boat. It's cool. We're okay with what we're getting over here. Maybe the 9 didn't even notice that that's what they were getting until the 8 or whatever other type was like, yo, this is bull. Like, like this is a problem. And then it's like, oh wow, I guess we should be getting more, but no, it's all right. So of course, that's the 9's natural tendency. That's not where they should remain. I recommend a 9 moving more into that 8, that lean more a little bit on that 8 wing, and try to like get more of that 3 integration in there so that they can like be more of a fender for themselves. see the glass as half empty sometimes when you really can actually get more than you already have there. But yeah, in situations, I think that our natural inclination as a nine is to just view the glass as half full. And that's just an observation that I wanted to point out. So number four thing that I've noticed about being a nine, personally speaking, is that I believe that nines have more of a tendency to grow towards mopiness, as opposed to anger. And so, because nines are in the anger triad, then they're not only sleep to their own feelings, emotions, desires a lot of times, but the thing that they're mainly asleep to and avoid is their anger. And so I think that a lot of times this means that an easier accessible door for them before they get to the door of anger is usually like to get sad and to like get very like mopey, and maybe even mellow, when things may be bothering them. And I think that it's an attempt, at least for me, I think that it's an attempt to kind of like analyze the situation and kind of try to like keep your energy from affecting other people, as you try to like assess it all. These nines become very contemplative, and I feel like that's a key way, one of the key ways to be able to identify a nine as well. But y'all let me know what you think. So number fifth thing about being a Enneagram 9, is one of the biggest things about being an Enneagram 9 actually, which is narcotizing. So nines put their desires in a chokehold. That's pretty much what narcotizing is. And this is all subconsciously done. Nines do not take time to think about their own needs, their desires, what they want, etc. And when they actually do, but then it comes in conflict with somebody else's desires or needs, whatever, then the nine will subconsciously but automatically put their own desire in a chokehold, because they would much rather, more often, go with what somebody else wants than whatever they might actually want. And this is why I feel like nines do not spend that much time even like analyzing what they may want, what they may need, and all of that, because it's yet another way that they can go underneath the radar, blend in with everyone, and kind of be a little bit invisible just enough so that they can get along with more people and avoid conflict. Because the more preferences that you have, the more desires that you have, then the more you're going to be meeting people who have opposing preferences and opposing desires. And opposing or opposition means conflict, and nines don't want that. But of course, it is healthy as a nine if you're going to be growing. This is not just something that you know, Enneagram is not something that you just hold on to and like you just kind of like live by. Like, you have to know that Enneagram is something that's meant to like help you grow. And so as a nine, this is some good advice to try to develop more of that ability to be able to notice what your desires are, get more in tune with your anger, and being able to like know and speak up for what you want in life. So the sixth thing that I've noticed about being an Enneagram 9 is that we do not seek praise. And I think that this is also another distinction from a lot of different types, such as like maybe like the 2 or the 3. Not all 2s or 3s seek praise. In fact, the self-preservation 3 is probably the most modest or most humble of all of the Enneagram subtypes. They work very hard to, maintain an image of modesty, but unfortunately that's where the paradox comes in, because they're trying to aim to be as least prideful as possible. So that's the counter type. Like, they're going against that pride that the 3 has, but then in doing that, then they are pretty much becoming prideful. So kind of sucks, but yeah, we can't escape our Enneagram types pretty much. So, but for 9s, they do not seek praise. I know that speaking for myself at least, kind of going back to like number one about letting the team down, I do a lot like this, and again, this is not to like brag, but it's just a fact. It's just a statement. I do a lot for whatever team, for whatever family, for whatever dynamic, for whatever group that I may be involved in. I do a lot underneath the radar. Do I intentionally do it underneath the radar? Yeah, sometimes, but not always. But I also don't do it so that people can see me. I'm just doing it because I just want to do my part. I just want to do it well. I just want to see the whole group be able to flourish. You know what I mean? And so because I do that, but a lot of times I'm not seeking praise, or I'm not really like looking for people to be able to see me like, hey, look at me, I'm running your food, or hey, look at me, I'm paying all of these bills, or hey, look at me, I'm helping take care of your children in this way, like whatever it might be. Because I do all of these things in the background, I know myself, like I'm not seeking that praise, and I don't need people to be like, oh, great job, hey Denzel, thank you so much for all of that. I don't mind if they do notice and they happen to say that. I'm not the type that's going to be like, oh, no. But I'm also not going to seek it. However, when the thing that I guess bothers me or pricks me the most is when the moment that I might mess up on something, or the moment that I may stop doing something, then all of a sudden everybody blows up. Everybody's upset about this now. Now they're going off on me, and they're like pretty much like saying like, oh Denzel, why'd you do this, or like, you don't ever do this. Like they pretty much make it seem as if I don't pull my weight on the team. I'm a slacker or something like that. That's one of the most irritating things possible, in my opinion. And I feel like other nines can probably relate. When you do so much for the group or for the people, and you're not even trying, it's like, you know what, I'm not asking for praise, but I'm also not asking for your criticism either. And so now you have to like think back of all the things that you have been doing and kind of like throw it in their face. But because it's so natural for you, then you don't even know what you've been doing, because you just kind of like been going with the emotions until all of a sudden somebody stops you and they say that you haven't been doing anything. They're like, wait a minute, no, I've been doing a lot. I mean, I'm kind of tired, so I don't remember what I've been doing, but I know that I've been doing a lot because I'm exhausted by it, I'm fatigued by it. And I feel like this could also lead to the passive aggressiveness of the nine as well, because they're trying to avoid the conflict, but at the same time they feel like they have been slighted in a way, and that's not a good thing. So the seventh thing, this one's mainly for the social nines, is that, and I hate to admit this, but it seems like we are fated not to fit in. I don't know many social nines in real life. In fact, I feel like I literally only know one, maybe two, but actually I feel like really just one right now. And according to Beatrice Chestnut, social nines, they work tirelessly. They're usually known as workaholics for whatever groups or group that they're in. They do a lot for it, but then they're always still feeling like there's still this underlying sadness, where they feel like they don't fully fit in with the group, that they are not being fully seen in some way, shape, or form. And we'll get more onto that later. But I refused to be a victim of this, or to be a victim of this mindset and hold on to that mindset. But the more that I kept on living life, then the more I just started to realize, like, dang, like, this really seems to be the case. And yeah, I need to find ways to work on that. I need to find ways to like be able to escape. But if I'm really fated to this, then will I ever be able to escape? Who knows? So yeah, it's social nine life, pretty scary, very difficult in that sense, and just that whole idea of like being fated to pretty much never fit in, and pretty much like, you know, you'll be in a group, but then you'll feel alone in that group, even when you're the leader. And yeah, it just really sucks. I think in addition to that last point, I'll also add that something that I noticed for myself is that we, as social nines especially, I believe that the reason why we tend to be in groups or try to, you can find us most in group dynamics, is because we believe that we are not enough solo. I can, for example, think to myself like, oh, I want to hang out today with so and so. Hey, so and so, do you want to hang out today? And maybe we can go bike riding, or maybe we can study for this test, or maybe we can go get some food to eat, whatever. But then my mind will instantly tell me, and because I've received messaging about this, that like, oh, like one on one, this dynamic, like this person may not really be comfortable, or they might feel like they're not, like you're not interesting enough, or you're not fun enough, whatever it might be. And so either they will invite somebody to join so that it could like add a little bit more extra to the dynamic that they could lean on, or I will try to invite someone, or invite them to invite someone, so that it could be more of an incentive for them to hang out with me. And it's like, saying this out loud is like, oh, so pathetic. But it's like, dang, that's kind of how when you observe the Enneagram, that's just kind of how it is. Yeah. Anyway, number 8 on this list is that Enneagram 9s, in my opinion, and my experience, are hyper aware of tone nuance. And what I mean by that is that all of the 9s that I know, they tend to speak in ways that they know they're aware of how certain tones and ways of speaking may come off and be received by someone in a fashion that could ultimately mutilate the relationship at times, or just create conflict. And anything that creates conflict, remember, 9s don't want to deal with that, especially if it's unnecessary or could have been avoided. So why would I say something in a rude tone and then risk the chance, even if it's small, of you responding back in a rude tone, and now there's some conflict or there's some static in the air, when I could have just said something in a nice tone, or in a nicer tone than just a regular nice tone. That way it could be fully clear that I'm not trying to start no trouble with you when I say either this constructive criticism, or even if I'm just asking you to pass the beans to me. This will keep this avoidance of conflict going on, so that way people can always at least assume that your intentions are never to start anything or to make it seem as if you're superior. So that is something that I've noticed within myself, and then I've noticed within a lot of Enneagram 9s that I know. And number 9, and the final one of this Enneagram 9 video, is the best feeling is being seen and desired, or people being interested in you. This, in my opinion, is probably the most important, the biggest one. Now, of course, every type wants to be seen. Every human being wants to be seen. Every human being wants to be desired. But I think that with the 9, it really hits different, because with 9s, they're not as forward with how with all of who they are. They're not as forward they're not even as in tune a lot of times with who they may be as a person, because they find that they might think to themselves like, well, I'm not interesting, so why would I spend all this time looking into myself and thinking that like I'm interesting or whatever, or like trying to figure out myself or whatever, or if I do that and then I try to explain it to someone else, I'm just going to receive some type of rejection. What's coming to mind for me is the U.S. Callister episode of Black Mirror, where of course that dude, he was some type of weird, there was some strange things that went on in that episode, we understand that, but I'm speaking more about the beginning, before we found out how much of a weirdo he is. Sorry, sign of sloth. Before we found out like how much of a weirdo this guy was, I believe that he's an Enneagram 9. And the new woman that came to the job, I remember that in that episode, she, like, she walked in and she actually saw him. Unlike everybody else at the office who just kind of was like, oh, hey, and they almost kind of like bullied him or whatever. Like, this woman like walked into his office one day and he's just like, he's so used to being rejected and people like not really caring about him that even when she was there, then he was just like, oh, yeah, hey, yeah, I made this or whatever. But as she was looking around the room and she was showing fascination and interest in the things that he seemed passionate about, then he all of a sudden, like, you could tell that he looked around like, whoa, wait, you really like what I did? You're really seeing, you think that's interesting? You think I'm interesting? Wow. Wait, you want to hear more about me? You want to actually talk more about me? Like, oh my goodness. Well, okay, are you sure? You sure? I feel like that's a huge Enneagram 9 mood. Another example of this could be The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Saw that movie recently for the first time, and that guy was definitely Enneagram 9. I believe that the U.S. Callister Enneagram 9 guy was an INTP, and then the Secret Life of Walter Mitty Enneagram 9 guy was an ISFJ. And I think that both of them were potentially self-preservation 9s. But nonetheless, still a 9, and I think that self-preservation, sexual 9s, and social 9s, we all have this tendency of like, we want to be seen. And whether it be that you're just masquerading in the group or you're in front of the group, but still you feel like nobody really sees you. Yeah, like who wants to like sit down and actually like speak to you and engage with you, and get to know you and make you know that, hey, you're not a boring person. You do matter, and I'm actually fascinated with the thoughts that you have, with the things that you have to say, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like these things, of course, once again, they hit for every human being, but I think that for a 9, these things hit very especially. And so if you know an Enneagram 9 in your life, then try to do that for them. Try to be that person for them. And it will not be taken for granted. I can almost guarantee you that. So yeah, that concludes my video today on what it's like being an Enneagram 9. 9 things on what it's like to be an Enneagram 9. Hope that you guys enjoyed this, that it was insightful. Leave questions, comments, concerns. Make one for your type. List them down below. Which ones would you say that you related to, regardless of whatever type that you were? Which ones could you see that you didn't relate to, regardless of whatever type that you were? Let me know. Let's all make this a discussion, and done.